Welcome to V2, the Institute for the Unstable Media. My name is Michel van Dartel. I'm a curator here at V2. It's my pleasure to welcome you to this very special edition of TestLab, our yearly graduation edition. So this is TestLab, the graduation edition, 2015. What we're first going to look at is a work by Lídia Pereira, who explores the frictions between digital utopias and material realities. And our current work is concerned with the political organization of labor within the digital economy. This is Lídia right next to me, and she just graduated from the Piet Zwart Institute on a work that you see displayed here, the Immaterial Labor Union. I don't think, although we've done quite a few of these graduation editions, we ever had someone graduate on a union. So maybe we should start this conversation by you telling us a little bit about what the union entails and what it stands for.
Okay. First I will start with some context. So in advanced capitalist societies, labor as we know it is undergoing some changes. For a lot of cases, it feels pleasurable. It kind of feels like leisure, and it appeals to our desires. And the examples of where such labor can be found are, for example, corporate social networking websites such as Facebook, Instagram, Google, etc. We there are contributing with our data for the profit of a privileged few, and our social interactions is being mined for value. But it feels so good, you know, you're communicating with your friends, everyone is there. So for the most times, we don't really feel like we are working. And that is why I decided to constitute the Immaterial Labor Union, because I think this relationship, this correspondence between labor and corporate social networking needs to be made real clear, because labor feels completely different, but it is still labor. And I say that to act or think otherwise is to let capital win once more. So we don't want that. So let's unionize. And it is a very ideological choice of my part to call it a union. And it is against this tendency, you know, of, okay, it's impossible to unionize and organize the digital multitude. But I argue in favor of its necessity, because we really need to stop this tendency of further individualization. And the thing I have here tonight, is the Immaterial Labor Union Zine, which is one of the projects. And it's a collaborative platform that aims to tackle the question of user engagement. So how are we to organize the workers who are not even aware that they are workers? So with the zine as a bi-weekly publication that tries to deconstruct this huge puzzle of digital economy into smaller, more relatable bits so that we can appeal to a broader audience. So for example, we have a zine on terms of service, advertisement on social media, etc., etc. So through satire, creative writing, images, comics, etc., we intend to be a platform for broader user engagement and to start thinking about campaigns, thinking about actions, and thinking about proposals. And this is where I appeal to you as an audience, because we have a mailing list, and there we hold regular debates about the nature of such a union and what's its relation to traditional union forms. And there we also make call for submissions, and of course, if this is a union for the multitude, well, you are the multitude, we are the multitude, we need your voice. So please feel free to join us, and at 10 I will be here. It says meeting, and I will be here to answer more questions, and if you would like to debate some of these ideas with me, I would be really glad.
Next to me is the work of Dries Depoorter, whose work explores how we, whether consciously or not, sort of give away our privacy when we use the internet. And I've been looking at Dries' work for quite a while now, and usually he actually submits himself to extreme internet usage. But in this project, he actually has more innocent subjects, coffee pots and office spaces.
So this installation is named Trojan Offices. It shows seven live webcams founded with Google with a really simple trick. I don't hack these webcams in. I don't force anything. It's just I just find them with a really, really small trick using Google. And the 7 webcams are live. They are worldwide. In some places I know where they are, but most not. And also I can move them. It's maybe in detail, but I can move physically the webcams in space. In each webcam, you can find coffee pots. So it's like they are in offices. And the reason why is the first webcam was the first live webcam on the internet was 25 years ago. It was at Cambridge, and they made a webcam to film a coffee pot. So the whole university know when the coffee is ready or not, or there is coffee is not. So this is quite...
That's very important information.
Very important. My story is like, now there are like millions of webcams, coffee pots online also. So 25 years later, the people don't know that that their own coffee pot is online. And
is that legal?
I don't know. I think it's the fault of Google, because I use Google. And
are you involving our whole audience in this crime?
Maybe.
Are you starting to feel guilty already?
I looked a lot to like the interface of the webcams, and I used on the types of webcams. It's I search on specific parts in the code, so I can it's a long search term. You can search with Google also in the title of a web page, and it's really simple. It's just a clever way to get some. It's more like we connect everything to the internet, and you have to think about it. Is it a good thing or not? And a lot of people told me like, fuck, like they can't. You have just like think about if it has an internet connection, think about a passport, think about, always think that people can watch you or that they can have to, because I think this is quite, I just want to show that it's quite easy to have access. I'm not a hacker or something, I'm just find a way to find these things. I can show it.
But is this also a warning signal to all of us installing webcams?
Just put a password on and then it's okay.
Standing next to me is Mathijs van Oosterhoudt, an artist that engages critically with the politics of media, especially exploring the political and cultural biases of media design. And the work that you see behind me is titled The Focal Camera, and on the base of this work, Mathijs just graduated from the Piet Zwart Institute in Rotterdam.
It started with my obsession with cameras, but also annoyance with how cameras are being designed nowadays. If you think about it, there are companies that make these cameras. They don't. Their goal is not to make cameras. Their goal is to sell cameras. And this, together with the social status and political status of the people that do have this power of design, it influences the choices they make. And if it influences the choices they make in creating a camera, then the choices in that camera influence us as photographers and how we think about photography. I chose for the camera especially because the importance of photography and images in our society currently, but this is present in every mechanic. There's actually a famous example that was already explained by Plato, where he talks about a boat, and the boat is has a political structure to it, because you need one person to command 10 people to row at the same time. Otherwise the boat does not work. You can put 10 anarchists on the boat, but then the boat is not going anywhere, so there's a political bias attached to the way the boat is created in the first place. I designed a series of modules. There's currently 20. Each module can be put together and has some quite complex features, such as an SLR. But at its core, it's very simple. And if you think about this, if you think about the handmade camera, what you often see is a pinhole camera. You know, there's one here. It's the simplest camera that we can make and we think is feasible. But when do you hear about a handmade SLR camera? You very rarely do. But it's very simple, because at the end it's just a mirror that has to do this. And that's all that makes a camera an SLR. So by making these modules and having people use these in a workshop, they also realize how simple it is. You know, you don't have to use these modules to make your camera, but afterwards you realize the simplicity. And all the designs are laser cut, and I chose for this because at that point, you only need a laser cutter, but those are becoming more increasingly accessible at maker spaces or city labs. and the instructions come with it, and you can just go there and use the machines for free, and that brings the material cost down a lot. All of the designs are open source and available online at focalcamera.com, and these parts all have one function each, and how you assemble those functions together, because these modules can be assembled in 1,000 of ways together, is up to you. And in the workshop you learn how cameras work, so the mechanics of it, mechanics of, for example, optics, because we also make our own lenses. But what you do with that knowledge is then up to you. So there's people making SLRs, and you can go from as simple as a pinhole to a camera that takes color pictures on black and white film. Yeah, this is a trichrome camera. It splits the light into 3 channels. That way you have a red, green, and a blue channel, all in black and white film. And later you can make a color composite image of that. This is an SLR portrait camera. It is fixed focus at about 1 to 2 meters to take portraiture. The cameras you see here were actually the result of a 2-day workshop. So within 2 days, we went from not having a camera to having a completely functioning camera and even having images made with the camera. Thank you for your attention. And if you're interested, check it out and go to the website.
We're actually looking at the work now of Jos Volkers, who's graduating on the basis of this work from the Frank Mohr Institute in Groningen. And central to Jos's work is the relation between art and ecology. And what we're looking at are models for a closed ecology. Jos is standing right next to me, and I guess you're the best person to explain how this closed ecology actually functions. So,
I came with some questions actually before I started to make these closed ecologies. So I was first closing ecologies in plastic, and I thought, well, that's unfair, you know. Nature should have the ability to break out of the sphere. So I was thinking, like, what if I make it biodegradable, so that the nature can break out actually? And but what does that mean? That was a question that I asked, because yeah, if you make something biodegradable, what is the function then after that? So then I started to look up what certain fungus do, and then I found out that, for example, the oyster mushroom mycelium breaks down crude oil, for example, or polymers, or other toxic substances, and is used for remediation of soil, bioremediation. And then I saw a link between the ecology inside of the closed system and the mycelium, because the mycelium is a mycorrhiza, so the mycorrhiza mycelia can live in symbiosis with plants, especially the beech or other indigenous trees. So I thought, yeah, well, it was an excellent idea to inoculate the system with the mycelium, and to put a nature inside it, especially using the beech, oak, and maple, for example, to have that symbiosis. So because what mycelium breaks down, for example, the toxic substances, but it breaks it down to minerals. So we can transport actually the minerals to the plants, and so if you harvest after that the plants, you took out well, this is beech. You can see it in the pattern, but whatever it is like. But I wanted to know if wood, when you close it down, so this one is not closed down, but if you close it down, which wood is attacked quicker by the mycelium that I inoculated. But there's also another mycelium in it, because I took nature out of a forest, literally, and put it inside, and there's of course a lot of microbacteria, but also other fungi. So there will be like a mixture of funguses that will probably, and bacteria, spread through the system. Mm-hmm. But I'm curious because one wood is more favorite to that fungus than the other wood. So this is, for example, beech. I think there I have iep. Sorry, I don't know the English word. That one is oak. This is maranti, so this is tropical, and that one is wenge, so that's also tropical. Mm-hmm. And this probably takes centuries, but well, that can be nice if you put it in the landscape, if you consider land art, for example. Okay. I took this shape purely because of theoretical input, because I read a lot about what it means to what it means to build closed ecological systems, and first thought to make like really from this organic material, this I call organic membrane, and it's made from agar and Arabic gum, mastic gum, actually honey, and I thought to make big blobs that can expand with the nature, because nature wants to grow, of course. But that is, it was not possible. So then I seeked for a shape that was also round, where the air circulation was good in, and that it can have a lot of downward force or sideward force. So it is also strong in a way. Okay, this is more or less the start, and these are models for in exhibition spaces. But I would like to try it also, for example, on the North Pole or in a desert, to see what happens, what the material do in those circumstances. Okay. Yeah.
And next to me is Teresa van Dongen, the person behind this project. She has a background in biology, and she in her design work, she sort of kept this fascination for biological phenomena, and now sort of build a practice of translating natural phenomena that are researched in a laboratory into a everyday space, right? Because that's what you did for your work, Ambio. You basically took this phenomenon that's being investigated in laboratories and turned it into an everyday household object. Teresa, by the way, graduated on the basis of this work from the Design Academy in Eindhoven.
It totally comes from the fascination where I wanted to do a research for my graduation into new forms of energy or other forms of energy or light. And in the end, after research into biogas and algae that can emit biofuels and things like that, I ended up with bioluminescence. It's a phenomena that maybe also some of you have seen. It's in the sea, for instance. You can see these waves that are turning, and at the moment of turn, the oxygen is mixing, and these algae that are in the waves, they will react to this oxygen by emitting light. So actually in the deep sea, there's a lot more of this bioluminescence on fish, on octopus, for instance, which is an organism that I in the end ended up working with. So it was super interesting research where I ended up working with Bart and Richard, who are also here, two master students actually at the Technical University in Delft. And they isolated these bacteria from the skin of an octopus, and they also react to oxygen. And they're here actually inside this lamp. They're in the tube, in a fluid. I designed it in such a way with two heavy weights on the sides that it's exactly in equilibrium, so it's a balance. And the moment that I will give it a little push, it will stay in movement for quite a while. And this movement induces the oxygen to mix inside the tube. And because of this mixing of the oxygen, the bacteria are supplied with what they need to emit light. Well, it's in a way, I really like how Koert van Mensvoort also talks about it. It's in a way, it's nature, but it's also what he calls its next nature, because we are going back in a way to nature, but we are also doing it in our new way. You know, we don't just I don't take you all to the sea and say, hey, that's there. We want to make it a bit more human, and want to have the feeling that we could one day maybe have actually a home with a lamp like this, and you would have to ask your neighbors to feed it when you have to go on holiday. I don't know. You know, like this whole idea, it inspires, I think, us.
What would that mean for the octopus population? Like, if you have to take these things from the animals, I mean, I think we're approaching this from like fancy, like we like it, it's nice. But if 3 million people want a lamp, I think, do we have octopus? Do we care?
You still need one octopus.
Yeah, you just need one?
Just one. And we bought it at the fish market. You need one octopus, because if you have a bacteria, you can grow a population.
Okay, it's like...
And so you only need actually to keep growing this bacteria that is maybe working super well. You can supply the whole universe with bacteria from that one octopus.
So you only extract one time,
yeah.
And then you can...
You even eat the octopus afterwards. But it's a constant play, of course, between nature and the nature that we want to harness and cultivate, and it's an interaction. It's a new evolution that we direct, and in when can you still say this is evolution made evolution, or is this evolution because we are also nature making evolution? So it's interesting.
Next to me is Kolkman, a self-proclaimed design hacker who aims to challenge our thinking about current and near future technologies. And he does so by making critical devices, I think he called them, or critical prototypes. And one of them is what we're looking at, a DIY surgical robot, on the basis of which you just graduated from the Design Interactions Department at the Royal College of Art.
Actually, you said it quite right. It's a do-it-yourself surgery robot. And it's part of my research, which is called open surgery. And in this project, I'm basically investigating if by building surgical tools outside of the regulated healthcare system, if we could provide a more accessible version of healthcare. The electronics inside are actually basically borrowed from a 3D printer community. So people that are building 3D printers right now are using the exact same technology that I'm using to drive this surgical robot. So at the same time, it's sort of questioning, like, what if we would sort of funnel all this energy that's going into these DIY communities that come up with these amazing machines, but sort of funnel this energy into some devices that are a little more critically engaging. This is not an autonomous robot. So this would be controlled by a human still, because a robot, although it's very good at sort of making precise movements, it's not very good at interpreting things. So even though with like professional surgical robots right now, they're always controlled by a surgeon. In this case, this would be no different, except for the fact that it's made from all DIY parts. So a surgeon would basically use a console like this, where he has a control, which in this case is a PlayStation 3 controller, to control these two arms and move it around inside the body. And these arms can basically be all kinds of different tools. So usually with this type of operation, you have these 3 entry ports that need to remain in a fixed position in the abdomen. And that basically means that the tool has to sort of revolve around this single point in space. So what these arms do is they sort of create a system that is constraining the movement around a single point of entry, which allows a sort of area of freedom that's sort of cone-shaped inside of the abdomen. But because the tools are fairly long, you can sort of do a range of different types of operations. So this could be anything from like a prostate exam to a colon examination, but also maybe an appendectomy or even a hysterectomy. It's sort of addressing a couple of issues, and it's also testing the feasibility of this. So this is basically my, not being an engineer, not being a software guy, just basically a product designer, my 5 months of working on this machine, it sort of takes me from nowhere to sort of being able to having a moving system. So like imagine what that would mean to sort of create a community of people doing this, then all of a sudden the plausibility is completely there. Like if you would get surgeons involved and you would get engineers involved, you can do this. Especially in this case, it draws out a lot of questions, and one of the most interesting is actually the liability issue. So what if I were to open source this machine? So I designed this machine. I wouldn't recommend performing surgery with it just yet. So as it sits, it's just a thought model. But I designed this machine, it moves. What if I were to start this community and put the files that I used to build this thing online, and someone would, on the other side of the world, perhaps, would sort of make this machine, have someone perform an operation with it on someone else, and that person gets injured, or worse, even dies in the process. Like, what does that mean for me as a designer? Like, where does that liability lie? Am I responsible for something that happens on the other side of the world because it's open source? Or is the person that is undergoing the surgery actually sort of accepting full responsibility for anything that can happen in this case? And the challenge right now is to sort of figure out what the legal side of it is. So I think the next step before actually sort of building this community is to sort of almost figure out, like, okay, so how would I actually approach this if I were to make it open source?
And I'm standing right in front of the work of Bastian Hoffmann, whose work sits between media art and sculpture, and actually it sort of embodies both, I would say. Behind me is a work called Maximum Power 2, and this is part of Sebastian Hoffmann's graduation work from the Academy of Media Arts in Cologne.
Yeah, it's actually a car, an object, it's called a car. Yeah, it's water going over it, like a thin film cover mostly the car. Yeah, that's what you see in a way. Actually, I was first thinking of, okay, which car did I use, because it's really important thing. And then my decision was to find a car more object, which is a car not as I remove every brand. I like to find a car which symbolizes a car. So like a child would draw a car. Yeah, and then it had to be black because to get the surface, like the water surface. And the hardest thing was actually to try to cover the whole car.
To make it watertight? Or like
Yeah, I tried with tubes here inside with a lot of holes and 20 pumps and like that. And finally, it worked better with just one pump.
But you also told me that actually water doesn't naturally flow over a car like this.
No, normally not. You have a lot of like pipes, which channels, which not look like channels, but they have to direct the water. So it's quite modified actually. That
So
the water flows.
how did you modify that?
Yeah, with a hammer a little bit, like make to make it more round. And then with a little bit tape, like flaps which direct the water. So just a few modifications.
You also told me that you've been experimenting with wax and sandpaper.
Yeah, first I bought I was searching for the car and I bought it, and then first the idea was I polish it. Shiny car should be also a shiny water car, but the different happened, like this lotus effect, like you have channeling when you have wax on it. So afterwards I sand the whole car with sandpaper. They have tiny channels which spread the water better. And I tried with, put some soap inside.
So you spent days and days sandpapering this car?
Yeah.
Or it's okay.
First polishing, then.
Okay.
I feel not like a media artist or want to define me like that. So it's getting more to a sculptural thing, I would say. So. I could not say that is a new type of media art, but what I think for me is that this sign is not that important anymore. For me in a way. So because I'm at two schools, actually also at the art academy in Düsseldorf, which is quite fine art and traditional, and even there, you find everything, like also on the media, like. So it's really mixed up. So the same feeling I do have in my own works. Okay. So I don't want to invent something. It's more about like between or
and so
just an object.
And so you feel that the context you're working in actually influences that as well?
Yeah, I think so too.
Okay.
Yeah.